Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today is this month's patron pick, so first of all, thank you to all of my wonderful supporters on Patreon. I really appreciate you. The topic that was chosen this month is one that I've seen a fair amount of requests for in one form or another ever since before the channel began. What do you do if you disagree with a judge? Now, I'd love to sit here and tell you that there's no reason to do that because judges are always right. But the fact is that judges are humans just like everybody else, and part of what that means is that we make mistakes too. So if you're planning on going to a magic event where there will be judges, it's important that you should know what to do if you think that's what happened. So first of all, I'll be handling what to do at events with more than one judge, and it's pretty straightforward. If you disagree with any part of a judge's ruling, you have the right to appeal to the head judge. Every tournament has a specific judge designated as the head judge, and one of the various responsibilities that judge has is to be the final arbiter in any disputes regarding rules and policy. Especially with tournaments that have many players, there may also be one or more appeals judges who are authorized to hear appeals in case one comes up while the head judge is already hearing another one or is otherwise busy. Okay, so how do you request an appeal? The first thing is to make sure that the original judge is finished making the ruling. Appealing before this point is generally considered to be pretty rude and can even be grounds for an unsporting conduct penalty. Honestly, I'm not sure if this is something that was a bigger deal in the past or if it's a regional thing. I've never really encountered this in my judging career, so I'm not sure how it got to be considered so problematic that it merited a specific call out like this, but anyway, don't do that. So what do you do? Well, once you make sure that you've heard and fully understand the ruling, then you can decide if you want to appeal it. Common reasons to appeal might include if you think the judge made a mistake in the ruling, or did not identify or correctly apply the appropriate section of policy, or even if you didn't understand or agree with the explanation that was provided. But you don't need to give any specific reason or cite any particular part of the original ruling that you disagree with. Sometimes people feel bad about appealing because they think it's akin to calling the judge incompetent, or they're worried it might result in the judge getting in trouble somehow. Rest assured, neither of those are true. A judge might be a bit embarrassed if one of their rulings ends up getting overturned, but any good judge would willingly take that embarrassment and learn from it in order to make sure that the judge call was resolved correctly. So the best way to appeal is to plainly ask to appeal the ruling. Like I said before, there's no requirement to give a reason, just a simple, could I appeal that to the head judge is sufficient. One suggestion that I have for judges in the audience is that while simply stating that intention to appeal might be sufficient, I don't think it should be necessary. If the player is showing by their words or body language that they are not comfortable with the ruling you just issued, just pretend that they said what they're probably thinking, or at least suggest this possibility. At an appeal, the head judge will review the entire ruling from the beginning. You can expect that the head judge will confer with both players as well as the judge who originally made the ruling. It's also possible that the head judge may consult another floor judge or appeals judge for help. This is most common in cases where the ruling involves an obscure rule or a difficult application of policy. Even though the judges chosen as appeals judges are usually the ones with the most experience, they also understand their roles as final arbiter and take that responsibility very seriously. As such, if the head judge is even a little bit unsure in their ruling, the consensus best practice is that every available resource should be exhausted to ease that doubt, especially including other judges. If you saw the judge who originally made your ruling consulted with one or more other judges, even if those were the head judges or appeal judges, you still can appeal the ruling. Only rulings that are actually made by the head judge or appeal judge are final. Alright, so let's say that your event does not have multiple judges, there's just one. And a lot of this is also going to apply to the case where you've appealed your ruling and are talking to the head judge, because if there's only one judge at an event, that judge is by default considered to be the head judge. So what can you do if the head judge makes a mistake? Well, I have some bad news, which is that the head judge is the final word on interpretation of cards, rules, and policy, meaning that all you can try to do is convince the head judge that they were wrong, and if that doesn't work out, then the only thing left is to take your bad beat story to the good people of Twitter and Reddit. That's not to say that your situation is hopeless. It is true that if the head judge rules that at this tournament, islands can only tap for colorless, then that's the word. But even though something like that hypothetically could happen, it doesn't mean it would. I don't know any judge who would consider such an indulgence in flagrant abuse of power, and the vast majority would never even think of such a thing. If you are in a situation where a judge seems to intentionally have it out for you, I'm sorry to say it, but there isn't a whole lot that you can do. If the tournament organizer gets enough similar complaints, they might stop hiring that judge. And if the judge is a member of any of the judge organizations, they could sanction that judge for breaking their code of conduct, but that's about it. I wish I could say that it never happens, but the best I can say is that in my experience, it's very rare. This leads to my first point of advice, which is that when dealing with a judge, always assume that they're making a good faith effort to deliver a correct, fair, and unbiased ruling, because they almost certainly is in fact the case. And if it isn't, then you're probably not going to be able to get a good outcome anyway. Next point of advice is to try to stay calm. Mostly this advice is directed towards judges in order to recognize that this is a stressful moment for the player's tournament, and so it's very important to make sure every effort is made to not escalate things. That said, everybody benefits from keeping proper perspective, and the fact is that the chances of a negative outcome increase dramatically if your emotions are running the show, especially in situations that require clear and thoughtful communication and understanding. Finally, it's time for one weird trick to easily change a judge's mind and make them finally see the light. Okay, not really. I suppose if there was one weird trick, it's to actually know what you're talking about, but I suppose everybody probably already knew that one. The best case scenario would be if you were able to succinctly explain what the correct answer and reasoning was and back that up with a citation from the appropriate rules or policy document. I know that's not really a reasonable ask, especially when most judges probably couldn't point to where specifically it says the answer is what they say it is, but again, that's a best case scenario. Next best would be a logical, coherent explanation of why you think the ruling should be different, perhaps with a comparison to another ruling that you might know. Explaining why the ruling at hand is similar or different from another ruling is a good way to communicate why you think it should work a certain way, even if you don't have the technical vocabulary to precisely express it in rules lawyerese. In fact, it's a tactic I often use to this end in my own rulings. At worst, this should give the judge a starting point for explaining exactly what the difference is and what your concerns are and being able to address those. On the other hand, an explanation along the lines of "it works this way on Moto" or Arena is much less likely to be taken seriously. There are numerous examples throughout the years of interactions, sometimes relatively high-profile ones, being coded incorrectly and thus not working the way that they should. In the same vein, an explanation of "another judge made the opposite ruling before" is probably not going to change anyone's mind. Think about how that looks from the current judge's point of view. Unless the other judge is physically there to explain why the ruling should be different, there's basically no reason for the original judge to do so. And that's it. With this, you know what an appeal is, how to ask for one, what physically happens during an appeal, as well as some advice to increase the chances that you'll get a good outcome. Before I close out, I want to take a moment to sympathize. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, I've been asked what to do if you disagree with a judge lots of times since I started judging. And I know that most of those times, the player was asking because that really happened to them and they didn't know what to do. Maybe they just accepted it and moved on. Maybe it gnawed at them and festered away for weeks, months, years. To everybody who's been affected by a bad ruling, I'm sorry. I really am. Speaking as someone who's been on both sides of that scenario, it's hard to say which thing's worse. Breaking the trust of a player who put their faith in me, or having that trust broken. That's one big reason why I'm so much into Magic education, to reduce the chances a judge misses a ruling and to give players a better chance to catch those mistakes. Magic is a complicated game and it's so much easier to get right if we're all working together. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.